Oh, yeah. I don't know if I should tell you this, but I mean, I feel so good about this, so I might as well. I have this idea for a business, the business we talked about, yeah. I mean, I might as well tell you all my New Year plans. I want to. We all have been in this situation, at least once or twice. But telling people your dreams, your goals, your plans feels so good, right? And what bad could happen if I'm gonna just catch up with my friend that way? Or meet someone at a party and connect because we have similar goals? What bad could possibly happen? Actually, a lot of bad things could happen because sharing our goals taps into psychological need for recognition, validation, support, which triggers a temporary boost in motivation and mood. However, it can also lead to premature sense of accomplishment because when we say things, when we talk about our goals to other people, it releases dopamine, which our brain there's a quick thing about our brain. Our brain doesn't really understand the difference between what we say and what we achieve. So when we say we want to run a marathon, our brain is like, yes, we ran a marathon. And we get the dopamine release as though we already achieved that thing, as though we already ran that marathon. So because of that, our motivation and drive to, for example, run a marathon decreases because our brain is like, well, you already ran a marathon. So why do you need to run it twice? I don't want to. Literally, we did not run a marathon because, we just talked about it, but our brain is like, you ran a marathon. As much as I know, you already ran it, so I don't see why I should keep you motivated to train for it. And that is the same with anything else. For example, you're like, oh, I want to become a chef, or I want to move to that country, or I want to do that. And the good feeling you would feel after achieving that goal, you already feel because you talk to someone about it, and our brain thinks it's already done. We get addicted to talking about our goals, but not just talking about our goals to a wall or, I don't know, an animal or something like that. We get addicted to the reaction other people have. And that's why they're people who talk and just talk. They do nothing. Like, oh, I want to run a marathon, and they tell all their friends just because they want to get an emotional response from their friends because they addicted to that response they're gonna get them, because that also increases the dopamine your body releases. It's not only that you talk about your goals, it's also how other people react. And different reactions from different people could have different consequences for your dopamine release and your goal achievement. And I'm gonna talk about it a little later. And there's also people who do not say anything. They do not say anything to anyone. They just show by their action, they do achieve this goal. There's also people who do the talk. They tell someone, maybe for accountability or to a mentor of some sort, what their goal is, and then they achieve this goal. But a lot of people are just this. They tell something to someone and they tell that thing to a lot of people and they don't achieve it. Or they don't achieve it in a way that they wanted to achieve it. If you think about it, we do a lot of things for other people's admiration and approval and support and, just for other people to love us or like us in some sort. Some people even choose career path based on other people's opinion. Can you imagine that? But what I mean is, we look at other people's reactions when we talk about dreams. You might not have noticed it, but we do. That's one of the main reasons why we get the dopamine release. And when the reaction of a person you're talking to is positive to you. Maybe you want them to feel jealous or envious, or you want them to support you or to be in awe of you. Whatever reaction pats your ego on the back is positive for you. But if their reaction is something that is offensive to your ego, something like, oh yeah, sure, you could do that, yeah. Or just something condescending like, oh, cool. Something which is entirely opposite of what you had in mind. Then you can have 4 next reactions. First one is you could feel motivated to prove them wrong. If they, for example, told you that, oh yeah, you would never do that, you're not as smart, you could never go there, or something like that, you could feel motivated to prove them wrong. For example, as I don't remember her name, but the main character from Legally Blonde, someone told her that she could not go to Harvard, and she did, or something like that, I don't remember. She was motivated to prove someone wrong, but then she fell in love with that thing, you know? So no harm in that, just to prove someone wrong. But there's also a mentality of watch me, which is so toxic. And I think I don't even have to tell you that it's toxic, because you obviously know. If that comes from a place of toxicity, then, well, yeah, your reaction could also be even more self-doubt. If you already doubted in your plan, and I think we all do, we kind of have a little doubt about our goals, like, oh, maybe that's too ambitious, maybe that's that. And when other person shows that, like, oh, you'll never achieve this or something like that, you're like, yeah, they're probably right. Who am I kidding, you know? That just increases your self-doubt and lowers your confidence. And there's also a response of brushing it off, because you could understand that what that person's saying is just a reflection of them and not of you. If, for example, you told that person that you want to be an artist and they don't believe in artistic professions, you know, they're like, okay, yeah, sure, you can do that. Yeah, good luck with that, you know? Something like that. Or maybe even worse response than that. Maybe like they could start yelling or like fighting with you or whatever, just because they wanted always to be an artist, but they didn't pursue it. And they, like, you know, you could understand that other person's reaction is just a reflection of who they are, you know? So there's 4 reactions of when someone says something negative. And in one chance, it could bring something positive, and you could feel motivated to show them, like, oh no, you're wrong. But I think the best thing to do is not tell your goals or dreams or whatever to anyone. However, there was a study that found that telling certain types of people would benefit you. The study was, I don't want to get into details because it's a little boring, but there was 171 students, and there was 3 groups of people, like not 3 groups of people, but they were in different classrooms, as I understand, and all of them were seated at the computer, and they were told that they need to move a slider on the screen to a number 50 as many times as possible within the assigned time. After counting down how many times they successfully did it, they had to do it again, but this time they were told to write down a goal of how many times they want to do it. The experimenter then told the participants that they would get a lab assistant who would come around and check on their goals, and the same person always checked on the goals of people in that classroom. But the catch is that there were 2 different versions of that assistant. For the first classroom, that assistant was wearing a suit, and he introduced himself as doctoral level student in a business school who was an expert at today's topic that they were studying. All the undergraduate students agreed that this person, that lab assistant, was higher in ranks than them, that he was a higher status person than them. For other participants, the same lab assistant just dressed casually and said that he was from a community college and he was just working here and helping out here, you know. So the people that were in that second class rated him as lower status than themselves. So the third class, the third group of people, they didn't have lab assistant. They just wrote down their goals, and there was no one to check them or to look over them. You know, there was no one coming and going from them to other people. They were just on themselves with a piece of paper where the goals were written. So the people in the first class, where they had a lab assistant who they thought is higher status than themselves, they did better with following their goals, like the goals that they wrote on a piece of paper of how many times they want to, you know, you understand what I'm saying. Those in second class and third class performed the same way. They didn't perform as good as the first class. They performed bad, you know. There was no difference between, like, there was little difference between those in second class where they had a lab assistant who was lower in class than themselves as they thought, or in the third class where there was no lab assistants and there was just them on their own with, that piece of paper. And what it concluded is that if you don't care about the opinion of whom you tell, it doesn't affect your desire to persist, which is really what goal commitment is all about. I thought about the study and I tried to kind of remember the situation in my life where I told someone something like a goal or something like that to a mentor or like a person who I thought is higher status than me. And I remembered kind of the story, but before I tell you the story, I just thought of it like that way. For example, if I want to become a dancer, or run a marathon, let's stick to the running marathon metaphor. If I wanted to run a marathon and I meet a person who ran the most marathons in their life, who's the best at running marathons, and I will tell that person like, oh my god, I just really want to run a marathon, and that person would be like, yeah, great, amazing, I wish you luck, and so on and so forth. That person, in my mind, is definitely higher status than I am, right? But I could tell that person that this is my dream, and they're like, okay, I support you, good luck, whatever. I will never see that person again in my life. So they would never find out if I actually run the marathon or not. They couldn't care less because they're famous. They don't really care about, there's a lot of people coming up to them and saying like, oh my god, I would love to do that, So I will be happy for half an hour, I will feel this adrenaline of oh my god, he supported me so great, and then nothing. There's no, in my opinion, if you're gonna just tell some famous person or someone you admire, if that person is not in your life, then nothing is gonna improve, You're gonna feel happy, of course. You will have a picture with your, celebrity crush or celebrity whatever, That's all. But if that person is in your life, if it's kind of like a mentor or your friend has run a marathon, and they could see that you're not preparing for marathon, they could see that you are not doing everything that you promised, and they could hold you accountable, and they could also motivate you and support you because they've been through this, then yes, there's higher possibility of you performing the task better and actually running the marathon. But if you're just gonna come up to every person who you think is higher status than you and thinking oh my god, I'm gonna tell as many high status people as I can, and then I'll definitely will run a marathon. No, in my opinion, it doesn't work like that. But what is interesting is that telling your goals to someone is a bad thing 99% of time, right? It doesn't benefit you. It actually is bad for you, and you watch this video, you know what I'm talking about. But writing down your goals, sometimes it's all the people can talk about on internet. They write down your goals, know your goals, write them down. Why is it so important? Why telling your goals is so bad, but writing down your goals is so good? And I'm just gonna give you a short answer. But if you'd like an extended version of me answering this question, then write it down in the comments. Basically, when you write down your goals, when you write down things, it helps your brain to remember that. It helps your brain to keep that information on top of your head, because we consume so much information throughout the day that we just get lost in it, and that helps your brain to have that information on top of your mind or whatever. So this basically makes it easier to focus on what is most important, especially when you write down your goals most vividly in the more details, the better. But that's all I have for you for today. And by the way, if you cannot watch my videos for some reason, on YouTube, you want just a quick podcast, I have a podcast. Well, basically I just put an audio version of my videos there, so it will be convenient for everyone if they want to just listen to it and not to watch it, In the description, I'm gonna put the podcast links. I hope you have an amazing day, and I love you. Bye!